The windshield wipers fought desperately against the blizzard as I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white with tension. Beside me sat Elise Winters, my notoriously cold-hearted boss, her face illuminated by the blue glow of her phone. Neither of us knew that in less than an hour, we'd be trapped together in a remote cabin with one bed, forced to confront the walls we'd built around our hearts. And by morning, a secret would emerge that would change everything I thought I knew about being a single father to my 5-year-old daughter, Emma. If you've ever felt like life has backed you into an impossible corner, this story is for you. Hit that like button and subscribe to join our community of storytellers and dreamers who believe that sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings come from the most unexpected places. My name is Noah Bennett, and 6 months ago, I became the newest project manager at Pinnacle Designs, a prestigious architecture firm in Boston. 6 months of walking on eggshells around Elise Winters, the firm's youngest ever creative director, known throughout the industry for her brilliant designs and equally brilliant ability to make grown men cry during presentations. The annual client retreat in Vermont was supposed to be my chance to finally prove myself. Instead, a freak snowstorm had forced us to abandon the main road, with Elise directing me down increasingly narrow mountain paths as we desperately searched for the small group of cabins where the rest of our team would be waiting. "The GPS says to turn right at the fork," Elise said, her voice carrying that familiar edge of impatience. "There is no fork," I replied, squinting through the windshield at the wall of white before us. "It's completely covered in snow." She sighed, the sound I'd come to dread during our weekly meetings. "Well, we need to make a decision, Noah. The storm is getting worse." As if to punctuate her point, a violent gust of wind rocked the car, sending us sliding dangerously close to the edge of the road. I corrected our course, heart pounding, and made a split-second decision to take the barely visible path to the right. 10 minutes later, the headlights illuminated a small wooden cabin, nearly buried in snow. It wasn't the luxury resort where our colleagues would be gathered, but at this point, any shelter would do. "This can't be right," Elise muttered, checking her phone again. "No signal. Perfect." I parked as close to the cabin as possible, and we made a mad dash through knee-deep snow to the front door. To my surprise, it opened. The interior was dark and cold, but it was a cabin, not an abandoned shack. Rustic furniture, a stone fireplace, and most importantly, solid walls to keep out the howling storm. "Hello?" I called out, but the cabin was empty. Elise found a note on the kitchen counter. "It's a rental. The owners say they keep it unlocked during winter storms for emergencies." She looked around with thinly veiled disdain. "I suppose this qualifies." While she explored the small space, I checked our supplies. We had my overnight bag, Elise's sleek designer suitcase, and the box of presentation materials in the trunk. I brought everything inside, then assessed our situation: no electricity, no cell service, rapidly dropping temperatures, and a storm that the weather service had predicted would last until morning. "There's only one bedroom," Elise announced, returning from her inspection. The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. One bed. One night. My ice-cold boss. I immediately volunteered for the couch, a lumpy-looking affair that was about a foot too short for my 6'2" frame. Elise didn't argue. As darkness fell completely, I managed to get a fire going in the fireplace. The dancing flames cast long shadows across the cabin, creating an almost intimate atmosphere that felt dangerously at odds with our professional relationship. Elise had changed from her tailored suit into what I assumed were her pajamas, though they looked more expensive than my best dress clothes. She sat cross-legged on the rug before the fire, her platinum blonde hair falling loose around her shoulders instead of pulled back in her usual severe bun. Without her usual armor of designer clothes and perfect makeup, she looked younger, almost vulnerable. "You're good at that," she said, nodding toward the fire. "Eagle Scout," I replied with a small smile. "Some skills you never forget." An awkward silence fell between us. In 6 months of working together, we'd never had a conversation that wasn't about work. I knew nothing about her personal life, and she knew only the basics about mine, that I was a single dad to Emma, my precocious kindergartner. "Are you hungry?" I asked, rummaging through my bag. I always pack snacks. Habit from having a kid who turns into a gremlin when her blood sugar drops. That earned me the smallest hint of a smile. I wouldn't say no to food. I laid out my emergency stash: granola bars, dried fruit, and a bag of Emma's favorite animal crackers. Elise selected a granola bar, unwrapping it carefully. "How old is your daughter?" she asked unexpectedly. 5. Going on 35, if you ask her teachers. I couldn't help the pride that crept into my voice. She's the reason I applied to Pinnacle, actually. The health insurance is better than my last firm, and she has some medical needs. Elise nodded, her expression unreadable in the firelight. "It can't be easy, raising a child alone." "It's not," I admitted. "But Emma makes it worth it. Every sleepless night, every missed opportunity. I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." "Her mother isn't in the picture?" The question caught me off guard. No one at work had ever been bold enough to ask directly. "No," I said after a moment. "Melissa died when Emma was 2. Breast cancer." Elise's expression softened, the ice in her blue eyes melting just a fraction. "I'm sorry." "Thank you." I poked at the fire, watching the sparks rise. "What about you? Any family waiting for you to come home from this business trip?" She shook her head. "Just a cat who probably won't notice I'm gone as long as the automatic feeder works." "No boyfriend? Husband? Partner?" The questions slipped out before I could stop them. Elise gave me a look that would have made me backpedal frantically in the office, but here, in this strange bubble outside of normal life, she simply sighed. "No time. The firm is my life." She said it matter-of-factly, but I caught something else in her voice. "Regret, maybe? Or resignation?" "That's dedicated," I offered. "That's one word for it." She wrapped her arms around her knees, suddenly looking smaller. "My father used to say I'd never succeed in architecture because I was too emotional, too attached to my designs. So I learned to be cold. Clinical. To see buildings as problems to solve rather than dreams to build." I was stunned by this glimpse behind the curtain. "Your father was in the business?" "Bennett Winters," she said, watching my reaction. My jaw dropped. Bennett Winters was a legend in the architecture world, known for his revolutionary designs and his old-school approach to the profession. "Your father is the Bennett Winters?" "I studied his work in college." She corrected quietly. "He died 3 years ago." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. "That must have been difficult." "It was complicated." She stared into the fire. "He was brilliant but demanding. Nothing was ever good enough. When I joined his firm after graduate school, he made it clear that I wouldn't get special treatment. In fact, he was harder on me than anyone else." The pieces started falling into place: her perfectionism, her exacting standards, her reputation for being impossible to please. She'd learned it from the master. "Is that why you left his firm to join Pinnacle?" I asked. She nodded. "After he died, I couldn't stay. Too many ghosts." She looked up suddenly, as if realizing how much she'd revealed. "I don't usually talk about this." "Must be the altitude," I joked gently. "Or maybe being trapped in a snowstorm has a way of breaking down barriers." "Maybe." She almost smiled again, and I found myself wanting to see a real one, to break through that final layer of ice. The fire crackled between us as the wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Despite the circumstances, I felt strangely at peace. There was something liberating about being stranded, about stepping outside the carefully constructed boundaries of our professional relationship. "Tell me about Emma," Elise said suddenly. "What's she like?" The question warmed me more than the fire. She's amazing. Smart, stubborn, creative. She loves dinosaurs and space and wants to be an architecture builder, like her dad when she grows up. Architecture builder, Elise repeated, and this time she did smile, a real one that transformed her face. That's adorable. She'd be thrilled to know I'm trapped in a cabin with the great Elise Winters. She's seen your picture on the company website and decided you must be a princess because of your sparkly hair. Elise laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was so unexpected and genuine that I couldn't help joining in. A princess? That's a first. Most people at the office probably think I'm the Ice Queen. Well, you can be a bit intimidating, I admitted. Good, she said, but there was no edge to it. It's not easy being a woman in this field, Noah. Being nice doesn't get you respect. Being good isn't enough. You have to be exceptional, and even then, there will always be someone waiting for you to fail. I nodded, seeing her in a new light. For what it's worth, I think you're exceptional. Your design for the Riverside project was brilliant. She looked genuinely surprised by the compliment. Thank you. That means more than you might think. As the night wore on, our conversation flowed more easily. We talked about architecture, about our favorite buildings and designers. We debated the merits of form versus function, modernism versus traditionalism. I told her about my dream to design sustainable family homes, and she shared her passion for urban renewal projects. When the fire began to die down, I added more wood, conscious of the need to keep the cabin warm through the night. The temperature outside had plummeted, and even with the fire, there was a definite chill in the air. Elise hugged herself, shivering slightly. I should probably try to get some sleep. Take these, I said, pulling out the extra sweater and thick socks from my bag. They're not designer, but they're warm. She accepted them with a grateful nod and disappeared into the bedroom. I settled onto the couch, pulling my coat over me as a makeshift blanket. Despite the discomfort, I felt strangely content. The evening had been nice. More than nice. It had been revealing, in ways I hadn't expected. I was just drifting off when the bedroom door opened. Elise stood there, wrapped in a blanket, her expression hesitant. Noah? It's freezing in there. The window doesn't seal properly. She paused, seeming to struggle with her next words. This is ridiculous. The bed is big enough for both of us, and we're both adults. We can share it without making things weird. I blinked, certain I'd misheard her. Are you sure? It's purely practical, she said, her professional tone returning. Neither of us will be any use at the client meeting tomorrow if we freeze to death or don't sleep. Right. Practical. I gathered my coat and followed her into the bedroom, my heart inexplicably racing. The bed was indeed large enough for two people to sleep without touching, but just barely. We lay side by side, a careful foot of space between us, both staring at the ceiling. Thank you, she said quietly. For the fire. And the snacks. And for not making this awkward. You're welcome, I replied, equally quiet. Thank you for not firing me for getting us lost in a blizzard. She laughed softly. The night's not over yet, Bennett. I smiled in the darkness, oddly comforted by her return to our usual banter. This I knew how to navigate. Good night, Elise. Good night, Noah. I listened to her breathing slow and deepen, aware of every inch of space between us, of the strange intimacy of sharing a bed with someone who, just hours ago, had been nothing more than my intimidating boss. Now she was, what? Still my boss, certainly. But also a woman with her own struggles, her own ghosts, her own dreams. Sleep claimed me eventually, and with it came dreams, confused, vivid dreams of falling snow and blue eyes and a little girl with her mother's smile. I woke to sunlight streaming through the window and the bed beside me empty. For a moment, I wondered if I'd dreamed the entire night. Then I heard movement in the main room of the cabin and smelled something that made my stomach growl. Elise was at the small wood stove, somehow managing to make coffee with the limited supplies available. She'd changed back into her work clothes, her hair once again pulled back in its severe bun. The transformation was complete. The vulnerable woman from last night was gone, replaced by the polished professional I knew from the office. "Morning," she said briskly. "The storm has passed. I checked the road, and it looks passable. We should be able to make it to the resort in time for the first meeting." "Good morning," I replied, trying to gauge her mood. "Coffee smells amazing." She handed me a mug without meeting my eyes. "We should leave as soon as possible." I nodded, accepting that whatever connection we'd formed last night had been temporary, a product of our unusual circumstances. "I'll get ready." We packed up in silence, erasing all evidence of our stay. As I loaded our bags into the car, I couldn't help feeling a sense of loss. It was ridiculous, of course. Nothing had happened between us. We'd talked, we'd shared a bed out of necessity, and now we were returning to our normal lives. The drive to the resort was quiet, the spectacular snow-covered landscape passing by unappreciated as I tried to figure out how to navigate this new awkwardness between us. Finally, as the resort came into view, Elise spoke. "Noah, about last night." "It's okay," I said quickly. "What happens in a snowstorm stays in a snowstorm, right?" She looked at me then, her expression unreadable. "That's not what I was going to say." I waited, heart inexplicably pounding. "I wanted to thank you," she continued. "For listening. For not judging. It's been a long time since I've talked to anyone like that." "It was my pleasure," I said sincerely. I enjoyed getting to know the woman behind the creative director title. She smiled slightly. "Well, don't get used to it. I have a reputation to maintain." "Your secret's safe with me," I promised. Ice Queen in the office, actual human being after hours. She laughed, the sound still new enough to surprise me. "I appreciate that." She hesitated, then added, "I'd like to meet Emma sometime. She sounds remarkable." The request caught me completely off guard. "She'd love that. She has a school art show next Friday, actually. Nothing fancy, just kindergarten masterpieces, but she's very proud of her work." "Friday," Elise repeated thoughtfully. "I could make that work." Before I could process what was happening, we'd arrived at the resort. Our colleagues greeted us with relief, having been worried when we didn't arrive the previous night. We were immediately swept into meetings and presentations, the professional world reclaiming us. Throughout the day, I caught Elise watching me during presentations. Not with her usual critical stare, but with something softer, more contemplative. Each time our eyes met, she would quickly look away, returning her attention to the client or the presentation materials. It wasn't until the end of the day, as we were preparing to return to Boston, that she approached me again. "Noah, there's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice low and serious. "Something I realized last night when you were talking about Emma." My stomach tightened with sudden anxiety. "What is it?" She glanced around to ensure we weren't overheard. "Not here. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Before the staff meeting?" I nodded, my mind racing with possibilities, none of them making any sense. Of course. The drive back to Boston was a blur. I picked up Emma from my sister's house, hugging her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo and listening to her excited chatter about the 2 days I'd missed. I tried to focus on her, to be present, but my thoughts kept returning to Elise and her mysterious request. The next morning, I dropped Emma at school and arrived at the office early. Elise's door was closed, but I could see.